thin mist clings to the earth before dawn, coiling like the breath of something ancient and patient, something that watches from the woods and waits. The broken beams of a collapsed grain barn rise like skeletal arms through the haze, and beside it a hound limps through the slop, its body starved into shadow. It pauses at a frostbitten bone, half buried in manure, sniffs, moves on. Even hunger has its limits. The wind is slow and mean, tugging at a strip of torn wool that flaps from a line above the hovel door. It flutters like a surrender flag, a soft, rhythmic sound in a world that's otherwise gone quiet. No carts, no clanging of blacksmiths, no laughter from alehouses, just the low groan of the wind and the brittle creak of things forgotten. Inside the hovel, a woman kneels beside a hearth. The hearth is clay, dry, cold, dead, like everything else. The ashes within are weeks old, no embers remain. Her fingers, wrapped in cloth to keep the skin from cracking open again, fumble with a loaf of rygone green at the edges. She cuts it with a knife dulled by years and rusted at the hilt, its handle wrapped in linen, stained and stiff, once white. Beside her, a child sits hollow-eyed, thin, not from 1 week of hunger, but from many. He watches the bread crumble like dirt. In her hands, he doesn't reach for it. He only watches, the way someone might watch a bird disappear into the fog, half remembering what it meant to fly. The bread smells faintly of mold and metal. No butter, no salt. The closest thing to flavor is the bitter sting left in the throat. But they eat. Anyway, in silence, their hands shaking, their faces still. Outside, a bell tolls from the chapel, not for matins, but for the death of a newborn. The 4th this week. The sound cuts through the fog like a knife made of lead. The mother bows her head, not to pray, but to hide her tears. Crying, after all, takes energy, and she has none to spare. Once, she remembers, there were feast days. Real ones. Saint Walpurga, Saint Agnes. She remembers tables draped with garlands, firelit songs, the smell of roast goose and stewed pears, the rich oil of pork fat slicking wooden bowls. But that was before the land soured, before the rains stopped, before the taxes grew teeth. Now the granaries are sealed with iron locks. Even the scraps are counted. The reeve comes twice a month with his scroll and his soldiers gathering wheat. Not by bushels, but by fear. Those who withhold are whipped. Those who resist vanish. The Lord's table remains full, they say. There are fig cakes and wine in the manor house, brought in from the coast by mule cart. But here, in the peasant lane, they eat what they find or what they dare to steal. Sometimes it is bark, stripped from elder trees and boiled until soft. Sometimes it is nettles, picked from the churchyard, hands stung raw. Sometimes, when luck is cruel, it is a hare found limp by the road, its belly crawling with the slow white worms of decay, the flesh cooked long, until the stench becomes bearable, until the mind stops caring. And yet, before they eat, the mother always bows her head, even for this, even for stew that tastes of rot and damp soil. She whispers a blessing, not to God, not any more, but to the act itself, to eating, to staying alive one more day. Each bite is not a comfort, but a defiance, a way to say, you have not taken everything. The child chews slowly, staring at nothing. He no longer asks when the hunger will end. He no longer asks where his father is. These are questions buried with the last winter's snow, when the bodies piled high in the parish crypt and the priest stopped speaking of hope. In his dreams he sees apples, red ones, sweet ones, so heavy they pull the branches down. But when he wakes, all he finds are beetle shells and thin broth. And silence, always silence. The hound returns later, licking at the base of their door. It finds nothing, it whimpers, and then it goes. Somewhere in the village, a man sharpens a knife, not for food, but for the threat of it. Desperation has turned neighbors into strangers. The boundary between theft and survival is now only a question of who gets caught. The mother finishes the last of the bread, brushing the crumbs into a cloth. She'll save them. Even mold has its use. Perhaps tomorrow she'll find a root, a single potato frozen in the soil. She dreams of broth that tastes like something, of a warm spoon, of spring. But spring, if it comes, will come slow. The trees are still bare. The birds are silent. And the wind carries nothing but the smell of damp earth and wood smoke from fires she cannot afford to light. She looks at the child, whose eyelids have grown heavy, though his stomach is not full. She pulls a woolen wrap over his shoulders, thin, patched, pockmarked by moths, and hums an old tune. Not a lullaby, a harvest song, though there is no harvest. The candle sputters. The room is almost dark now. She leans her head against the wall and closes her eyes, not to sleep, but to remember. The warm weight of bread in her hands, her husband's laugh, the scent of barley fields before the plague came. Outside, the mist thickens, and far down the road, another bell begins to toll. Not for birth, not for birth, not for prayer, but for the 5th. And still tomorrow they will rise. They will eat what they can. Bark, root, worm. Bless it, because to eat is to live, and to live, even barely, is to whisper back against the silence, a whisper that will carry us into the next story, where hunger gives way not just to survival, but to revolt. The wind rattles the shutters like a warning. A thin sliver of moonlight cuts across the dirt floor, pale as bone, illuminating a wooden bowl chipped at the rim, stained dark by years of meals no one wanted to remember. A boy no older than 10 leans over it, cupping his hands to his mouth, as if in prayer, though there are no prayers left in him. The steam rising from the bowl is faint, a ghost. The scent is sharper, soured lard, cold marrow, and the metallic tinge of something too long dead. He does not ask what it is. He already knows. Across from him sits his grandmother, her hands wrapped in linen to keep her fingers from freezing into claws. Her breath comes slow. Her cheeks sag with the weight of too many winters. Yet her eyes remain fixed on the boy, measuring every movement, watching not with suspicion, but with reverence, as though feeding him might undo the years, might make something holy out of what they've become. She hums softly, a lullaby, one of the old ones, sung by her mother during the days of famine before this one. The words are mostly gone, but the tune survives, a thread stretched between hunger and memory. The boy lifts the spoon. The meat clings to it reluctantly, slick and strimmy, a strip of something once living. It might be rat, might be crow, might be worse, but none of that matters. What matters is that it's warm. Warmth is rare now, more precious than flavor, more sacred than safety. Outside the fields lie under a grey crust of frost, where barley once rose. Only ash remains. The soil has soured, the rains have thinned, and the manor walls, once symbols of protection, have become the border of a prison. The fields still belong to the Lord. So do the woods, so do the rivers. Even the deer wear invisible chains. His by law, his by blood. They have not seen flour in months. The last of the oats were given up for tithes, carted away by men in iron helms, their boots trailing filth and indifference. The steward took even the chicken bones for his hounds. In exchange, they were given nothing, not even a nod. Last month, the boy boiled acorns until the bitterness peeled the skin from his mouth. Before that, they tried making soup from boiled bark and crushed beetles. The broth turned black, but they drank it anyway. To refuse would be pride. Pride is for those who have choices. He does not dream of sugar or honey. He dreams of salt, of bread that does not crumble into dust, of meat that does not need to be buried before it can be eaten. The body adjusts, the old ones say, but the soul learns to wait, quietly, patiently. Tonight's meal had been a gift. A neighbor, desperate or kind, it was hard to say, left a parcel wrapped in cloth at their door. Inside was meat, still cold, still wet. She didn't ask where it came from. She knew better. The only law now was need. The candle flickers low, fat rendered from a stolen goose weeks ago, saved for this moment. It casts long shadows on the walls, making saints out of stones and monsters out of coats hung on pegs. The grandmother's face looks carved in wax. She shifts slowly, her body stiff, her joints protesting every motion. The bowl empties slowly. The boy eats with the caution of someone who's had to give food back before. Each bite is a negotiation between the body's demand and the mind's guilt. He does not look up. She does. She watches the candle, listens to the wind, wonders if this winter will be her last. Wonders, too, if the boy will live long enough to forget her name. Perhaps that's mercy. In the silence, a sound rises faint at first, then clearer. A bell tolls from across the fields, somewhere near the chapel ruins. The boy flinches, but does not stop eating. He knows what it means. Another death, another. Mouth the village no longer has to feed. She sighs. A sound both weary and grateful. The stew has cooled now. He scrapes the last of it with his fingers. He does not ask for more. There is no more. The pot is scraped clean, its bottom burned. She reaches across the table, her hands trembling as they brush his curls back from his forehead. Her fingers smell of ash and marrow. "You did well," she says, though it's barely more than a whisper. He nods, says nothing. The candle sputters. Somewhere. Outside, a dog howls. Or maybe a wolf. Or maybe it's only the wind remembering a time before walls and chains. She begins to hum again, softer now, slower. The song is fading, even from her own memory. But she sings anyway, because silence feels. Like surrender, she rises, joints crackling, and wraps the boy in a cloak that once belonged to his mother. The hem is frayed, the wool is thin, but it still carries the faint scent of rose oil, of another life, of love. He leans against her, full not with food, but with closeness, the kind that can keep a soul from slipping away in the dark. She kisses his brow and lowers the wick of the candle. The room falls into shadow, and in that shadow something sacred remains. Not hope, but endurance. The quiet vow to last one more night. One more frost, one more hunger. Tomorrow will come, and when it does, they will begin again. Spoon, bowl, silence. Because to endure is to resist. And in the world they have inherited, Resistance is the last word left to speak. The frost has thawed, but not by warmth. The earth is soft beneath the crusted snow, softened instead by rot and the slow decay of too many winters. Trees stand bare and sharp against the sky, like bones reaching toward heaven. In the clearing just beyond the edge of the village, 3 figures kneel in silence, cloaked in mud and guilt. The body before them is bloated, heavy with time, a deer, swollen and stiff, its eyes sunken, the tongue a black ribbon between yellow teeth. The smell is thick, sweet in a way that makes the stomach churn. One of them gags, but no one speaks. There's no room for revulsion anymore. Hunger has no patience for dignity. A knife is drawn, its edge chipped, its grip bound in wet cloth. The youngest cuts first. The flesh yields like overripe fruit. It peels away in strands, slick and grey-green. They work quickly, fingers raw, lips pressed tight. One man watches the trees, always the trees. Listening for the sound of boots on soil, the Reeves men patrol these woods. The deer belongs to the Lord, they would say, even dead, even rotting. To take it is theft, to take it is risk, but to walk away is death. They do not take the heart, it is gone too soft. Instead, they fill a sack with what muscle remains, scraping the marrow from bones with bits of slate. When it's done, they bury the head beneath a pile of leaves, not out of mercy, but to mask the scent from dogs by dusk. The meat is boiling in a blackened pot above the village's only fire. The stew smells foul, but it draws children like moths to flame. They press their faces to the clay walls of the cookhouse, noses red, eyes wide. One licks his lips, only to taste the salt of old tears. The broth is thin, mostly water and moss, but the steam rising from it is a kind of miracle. It means heat, it means fullness, if only for a moment. Women pass out bowls, their hands trembling with fatigue. Men sit in corners, eyes lowered. No one asks questions, not about where it came from, not about what it is. They simply eat, and try not to remember the taste of feasts. Elder Marta leads the prayer. Her voice is cracked, but strong. Bless this meal and the hands that found it. Forgive the taking. Preserve the living. She crosses herself, and the others follow, even those who no longer believe. She remembers the time before, when the harvest filled the barns, when salted fish hung in long rows above the hearth, when children played in the barley fields without fear. Back when stew was a choice, not a sentence. Now the choices are few. The baker's hut is cold. The priest's sermons are shorter, mostly silence and sighs. The apothecary closed her doors after the rats took root in her herbs. The only sound at dusk is the whimpering of empty stomachs and the distant howl of wolves. Bold now that men no longer carry torches into the woods. They eat what they can. The meat slides across tongues, soft, oily, strange. One girl smiles and whispers, "It tastes sweet." Her mother goes still. That sweetness, she knows, is the taste of death beginning. But she says nothing. She tucks a lock of the girl's hair behind her ear and smiles back. It is better not to break the illusion. When the meal is done, bowls are rinsed in snow melt. The fire is smothered to keep from drawing eyes. The children are gathered in corners, wrapped in blankets that smell of mildew and smoke. Marta returns to her bench, where a book lies open in her lap, a book of hours. Pages stiff with cold, ink fading beneath the touch of many hands. She reads not with her voice, but with her breath, silent, reverent, a ritual kept for no one but herself. A boy coughs in the dark. A woman whispers a lullaby. Somewhere beyond the fields, another bell tolls, slow, mournful, distant. It echoes across the low hills, weaving itself into the wind. The sack of meat is nearly gone. What remains will be stretched for 2 more days, if rationed. After that, there will be roots, bark, clay. Hunger will tighten its grip once more. But tonight, they have eaten tot tonight. They remember what it feels like to swallow, to feel warmth in the chest, to close their eyes and imagine another world. A world where deer still run free, where harvests are fair, where the law does not hoard, where a child's smile is not a wound. The stars emerge in silence, cold and indifferent. Marta closes her book, and in the quiet that follows, a thought, fleeting, fragile, sacred, passes through the air like smoke. How much longer can we live like this? Not aloud, not yet. But the question has been born, and in the hunger that waits just beyond the edge of the firelight, something begins to stir. Rain falls in slow sheets across the village, steady and unrelenting, like the breath of a morning god. It seeps into the soil, turning roads to muck, staining the hems of cloaks, and trickling through the thatch rooftops that sag under centuries of sorrow. The sky is the color of soot, and the wind carries no song, only the wet sigh of despair. Beneath a sagging awning, a man kneels over a boiling cauldron, its iron rim cracked and blackened from years of overuse. His hands are red from the cold, raw at the knuckles, chapped where the skin has begun to split. He stirs a thick sour mixture with a stick of ashwood, worn smooth, not from craftsmanship, but from necessity. Inside the pot is a stew, if it can be called that. Bits of bone, a pig's foot with the hair still clinging, the remnants of a cabbage boiled to bitterness, and a chunk of hard cheese too old to chew. The broth is brown, oily, bitter. It smells of desperation and smoke. Behind him, his wife crouches in the dim light, pulling beetles from a sack of flour riddled with tiny holes. She drops them into a cup with a calm precision, the way a nun might count her prayers. Her sleeves are damp, the hem of her dress caked in mud. Her back aches from days spent hunched over hedges, foraging for anything green that hasn't been, pissed on by dogs or cursed by blight. This is their supper. They have no firewood left, only a pile of twigs and dung gathered from the roadside. The smoke is thick, clinging to the walls, coating their throats. It stings their eyes, but they do not complain. Smoke is a luxury now. It means there is something left to burn. The man coughs, not from illness, but from memory. He remembers St. Bridget's Eve, when the ale flowed like rivers, and bread was warm with honey and rosemary. He remembers the weight of good meat on his tongue. He remembers the joy of not being afraid. That joy is gone now. The taxes have risen again. The Lord demands payment, not in prayer or in sweat, but in wheat. Wheat no one has. His reeve came. 2 days passed, riding a mare fat on oats, with soldiers at his flank. They took what was left, the hen, the dried turnips, even the pot where the lard was kept, left behind only the pot that now bubbles over with bile and bone. The law is clear. To steal is death. To poach is death. To speak against the Lord's decree is not death, but something slower, something colder, and so they do not speak. The wife's hands shake as she adds the flour, sifting it carefully into the pot. The dough forms like sludge on the surface, soaking in the bitterness. She wipes her hands on her apron and turns to the boy standing in the doorway, their son, no older than 12, soaked through from head to heel. He holds out a limp squirrel. Its eyes are dull, fur-soaked, claws curled. She takes it wordlessly. No one asks where it came from. The forest is forbidden, but there are no choices left that are not already sins. The man nods, adding the squirrel to the pot. Bones, fur, all of it. Boiled long enough, it will dissolve into the rest. Night comes early. The sky darkens before supper is ready. The stew bubbles, the smell thick and low. They gather on the floor, huddled close, sharing one bowl between. Them the spoon is passed gently from hand to hand. No one rushes. Each bite is a gift, even if it turns the stomach. The boy swallows and smiles faintly. Tastes like feast day, he says. His mother closes her eyes. His father ruffles his hair. They do not correct him. Let the lie live. It is warmer than the truth. In the distance, the chapel bell tolls for Compline, the hour of prayer, the hour of surrender. But no one goes to kneel. The church has no answers anymore. The priest speaks only of penance now, of judgment, but hunger is judgment enough. Outside, the rain continues, carving rivulets in the muck, washing away footprints and names and whatever is left of pride. Inside, the bowl is emptied. The boy wipes his fingers on his tunic. The mother licks the spoon, then places it carefully on the stone beside the hearth. The man stands and presses his hand against the low beam above the door. He looks outside, toward the manor house, its lanterns glowing like distant stars, warm and unreachable. He wonders how long they can keep going, how many more nights the stew can be stretched, how many more times they can trick the boy into believing this life is temporary. But he says nothing, because silence is how you survive. The woman moves to the corner and lights a single tallow candle. Its flame flickers. The shadows rise around them like cloaks, like shields, like arms too tired to fight. They lie down on the straw, curled into each other for warmth. Outside, the wolves cry, and inside, the man watches the last of the light flicker. Out and tells himself, tomorrow we will eat again. Tomorrow we will live again. Because to stop is death. And even this, even dung smoke and squirrel bone is life. The village square lies in ruin, emptied of its voice, cracked. Stone is slick with mud, and the echo of forgotten footsteps lingers like a curse in the air. In the middle of it all, beneath a sky the color of lead, stands a single chimney coughing out smoke. The only sign of warmth in a world gone cold. From that crooked chimney comes the scent of something boiling. Not bread, not meat, something sour, thick, and ancient, as though the pot remembers better meals, and mourns them. Inside the house, barely more than 4 walls, and a roof sagging under rot. A woman kneels beside the fire. She is older than she appears, not by years, but by famine. Her back is hunched from hours spent scouring hedgerows. Her cheeks are hollow. Her breath comes shallow and slow, rising in pale clouds. The fire crackles low. She feeds it one splinter of wood at a time, not logs, not branches, broken furniture, a broom handle, a child's carved toy long since abandoned. Each piece a sacrifice. In the pot, snails boil with scraps of onion skin, bitter herbs, a handful of roots too tough to chew raw. She stirs it with a long-handled spoon, watching it thicken, not with hunger, but with caution. This is all there is. Behind her lies a boy, swaddled in old linens, eyes closed. Her grandson, the fever has not broken. His lips are chapped, his skin hot to the touch. She murmurs to him gently as she moves. Words that used to belong to lullabies, now repurposed as spells against death. Once she had daughters. 2, both taken by last year's cough. The fever swept through the village like a blade, cutting silently. It spared no age, no house, no prayer. Now the boy is all that remains. She thinks of the convent she once served in as a girl, the stone floor cold under bare feet, the scent of beeswax and lavender. She remembers the sound of bells calling her to morning prayer, the taste of warm oatcakes on feast days. She remembers laughter. Once those memories flicker like candlelight. Fragile, she doesn't trust them. A knock at the door startles her. Not loud, just 2 taps. She opens it to find a child, younger than her grandson, barefoot, soaked with melted snow. In his hand, a dead rat, held out like an offering. He says nothing, just looks at her. She nods, and he steps inside. She lays the rat on the stone and draws her knife, the same knife she's used to clean rabbits, to cut roots, to defend herself once. The blade is rusted, the edge dull, but it will do. The child watches, quiet. Still, his eyes flicker with fear, but also with something else. Need. She works quickly. The rat is thin, more bone than meat, but she skins it with reverence, as though by treating it with care, she might trick the world into showing mercy. The boy stirs in his sleep. She hears a wheeze, soft and wet. She adds the rat to the pot. Bones and all, they wait as it cooks. The air grows heavier. The smell is strange, sharp but warm. When the stew is ready, she divides it into 3 bowls. Clay, chipped, uneven. She does not taste it first. She hands the bowl to the child, who holds it with both hands like a holy relic. He eats, slowly, then faster. No words, no thanks, just hunger. She lifts her grandson and cradles him in her arms, feeding him spoonful by spoonful. His eyes flutter, open, just barely. He swallows, and she exhales, a sound almost like relief. Her own bowl she saves for last. Cold by then, but food all the same. She eats in silence, staring into the fire. Outside, wind picks up. The village is still. The chapel bell does not ring. The priest has not been seen for days. Some say he left for the abbey. Some say he died in the woods. She does not care. Faith lives here now, not in pulpits, but in acts like these. The sharing of a rat, the warmth of a fire, the will to keep going. When the bowls are empty, she gathers the children close, wraps them in every scrap of wool and linen she owns. She sings to them, not the hymns of saints, but a shepherd's song, one her mother taught her while spinning thread. The candle flickers low, the fire dims, but the warmth, for now, lingers. She closes her eyes and sees a field. Summer, barley tall enough to hide in. A river, bred with honey. Voices calling her home. She smiles. Just for a moment, tomorrow will come, and with it, the cold. But tonight, they have eaten, and to eat is to live, and to live, even barely, is to win again against the silence. A wooden crucifix hangs above the door, blackened by years of smoke. Its edges are worn smooth, kissed by too many fingers, desperate for mercy. Below it, a man sits cross-legged on the packed earth floor, tying a bundle of reeds with strips of frayed twine. His breath fogs the air. The fire behind him is down to embers. It is morning, barely though, The sun refuses to show its face. His daughter watches from the hearth. She is still, save for her hands, which tremble slightly as they cradle a leather pouch. Inside, dried beetles, picked from beneath loose stones and gathered with care. Tonight, these beetles will be dinner. Once, they had goats, a small flock, with bells that jingled in the dusk and eyes like polished stones. He can still hear them sometimes, in dreams, the soft bleating, the clatter of hooves. But the goats are gone now, taken by fever, then by men, then by hunger. He finishes tying the reeds and sets the bundle beside the door. It will be used for kindling, or bedding, or maybe traded for a wedge of root, if there is anyone left to trade with. Outside, snow has begun to fall again, thin flakes, almost ash-like, drifting silently over the collapsed fence and the hollow field. The girl stands and moves to the window, a square of cloth nailed over a jagged hole. She lifts a corner. No carts pass. No smoke rises from neighboring homes. This is the season of silence. He rises, joints aching, and moves to the hearth. He takes the pouch from her with care, tipping its contents into a bowl already streaked with grease. The beetles click against the wood. Their shells glisten like obsidian. He adds the only other ingredient they have, a spoonful of goose fat, saved from a holiday 2 winters ago. The fat melts quickly, sending up a scent that is neither pleasant nor foul, just ... real, a scent that says, "We are still here." She watches him stir. The fire catches a little more, spitting sap and shadow across the walls. Her arms are bruised from gathering wood in the thickets beyond the Lord's forest. Her legs still sting from the nettles, but she says nothing. She knows better than to complain. Pain is part of the rhythm now, like eating, like sleeping, like praying without answers. He ladles the stew, if one can call it that, into a bowl and hands it to her. She holds it close, letting the warmth bleed into her fingers. She doesn't eat yet. She waits. He joins her on the floor. They sit across from each other, the bowl between them, a quiet covenant. One spoon, one silence. Each bite is a gesture of loyalty, not to the food, but to each other. She takes the first mouthful. The beetles crunch, bitter and earthy. She does not flinch. He eats next. Then they pass the bowl back and forth, wordless, steady. There are no tears. Not anymore. When the bowl is empty, he wipes it clean with the edge of his sleeve and sets it back on the hearth. The fire has shrunk again, but they have no more to give it. He will go out later, gather more, pray he is not seen. He turns to her. "Do you remember apples?" he asks. She nods. "Red ones. Do you remember the sound they made when they hit the ground?" "Like bells," she says. "But soft." He smiles. "Just barely. It is a lie." She does not remember apples. She was too young, but she has heard the story often enough. The apples that fell like stars from the trees, rolling in thick grass. Sweetness that stuck to your teeth. Juice that dripped down your chin. The memory is borrowed, but it is hers now. Too, he tucks her beneath a woolen sheet, more whole than cloth. She curls into the straw, closing her eyes. He places a small stone on the windowsill, smooth, white, cold. A charm, a prayer, a warning. No one is quite sure anymore, but he places it there every night. Outside, the snow falls harder. He sits beside the fire and listens. No dogs, no bells, no footsteps. Just the crackle of flame and the hush of falling ice. Tomorrow they will try again, Perhaps he'll catch a rat. Perhaps someone will trade something, a skin, a story, a nail for what they've scraped together. Perhaps the stew will be made from more than beetles, or perhaps not, but tonight they have eaten, and that is enough. He closes his eyes and whispers something into the dark, not a prayer, not a wish, just a name, hers, and that too is enough. The fog hangs low, clinging to the fields like a burial shroud. Each step sinks into wet earth, the mud pulling at boots like hands from below. Crows watch from the thatch roofs, black, silhouettes against a sky the color of iron. They do not cry out. They only watch Dot at the edge of the village, beside the ruined granary where the grain once spilled like gold. A boy digs with a broken spindle. His hands are blue from cold, his nails black with soil. He works in silence, breathing through his mouth to block the stench, the smell of something long buried, long forgotten. He is looking for roots, not food, but hope masquerading as food. Wild parsnip, maybe, or sorrel if it hasn't frozen. The ground gives little now, but he keeps digging. Digging is easier than watching his sisters starve. In the distance, a cow moans thin, cracked, tired. One of the last. Most were slaughtered months ago, their bones boiled 3 times over for broth, then broken with stones to suck out the marrow. The hides were chewed when hunger blurred the lines between survival and shame. The boy stops to rest. His breath clouds before him. He is 12, maybe 13, hard to say. Hunger has shrunk time, days and years, blending into the same grey stillness. He presses a hand to his belly. It feels empty, hollow, like the sound of wind through the chapel tower. That morning, his mother had given him the spindle and told him not to return until he'd found something. She didn't say what, just something. Her voice was quiet. Her eyes had gone dull, the whites yellowing. She hasn't stood in days. The youngest, the baby, no longer cries, just sleeps, lips crusted, breath thin. He knows what that means. He's seen it before. In the neighbor's cottage, when the Reeves came too late with grain and too early with judgment. He returns to digging. The soil is hard. It gives little. He finds a stone, then another, then something soft, a root, dark and cold. He wipes it on his sleeve, turns it over in his hand. It is rubbery, possibly poison. Possibly not, but it will be eaten. He finds a second root, then a third. Not enough, but something. As he walks back toward the village, the fog thickens, shapes blur. The cottages look like sagging faces, the windows, hollow eyes. A woman leans from her doorway, wrapped in linen, her hair in tatters. She does not speak. She only stares, like a statue left too long in the rain. He avoids the square. Too many eyes, too many needs. He slips behind the churchyard wall and ducks into their cottage. Inside, it is dark. The hearth is dead. His sisters sit curled together beneath a single wool blanket. His mother lies against the wall, unmoving. Her lips tremble as he enters. He kneels beside her, places the roots on a rag. She smiles, not with joy, but with recognition. She knows what he has done. She nods once, then closes her eyes again. He builds a fire with sticks and straw, feeding it slowly, whispering thanks with each spark. He places a tin cup over the flames, fills it with water from a skin, then drops the roots in. They watch it boil. The smell is bitter, acrid. It burns the eyes, but it is food. He crushes a pebble of salt between his fingers and adds it to the cup. It is all they have. It hisses in the water like a dying thing. He feeds his sisters first, one spoonful each, then his mother, then himself. The broth scalds his tongue but warms his chest. For a moment he forgets how cold his feet are. For a moment he is not afraid. They eat in silence. Outside, the church bell rings once, a single chime, not for mass, not for morning, for something else, something older. A warning, perhaps, or a farewell. The fog begins to lift, slowly, revealing more of the ruin. A man walks by with a wheelbarrow filled with bones. He does not look up. The boy finishes the last of the broth and sets the cup aside. The fire crackles. His sisters have fallen asleep again. Their faces are calm. They look like children again, not hollow-eyed ghosts. He lies down beside them, pulling the blanket over all three. His mother's breath grows steadier. Tomorrow he will dig again. Maybe farther out, near the ash tree where he once saw mushrooms growing, or by the stream if it hasn't frozen. But for now they are warm. For now they are full. And in this world, this bitter, buried world, that is enough. The wind shifts, the crows take flight, and somewhere beyond the village, far past the manor walls and the fields choked by frost, the sound of hooves echo in the fog. Not salvation, not yet, but something is coming, and when it does, the boy will be ready, because he has learned how to survive where no one was meant to eat what should not be eaten, to find life in the places others forgot to look, and in that there is strength, in that there is fire.